like I said, I mentioned I've had some people ask me about this from the bonus sketch. The last week we put together bonus sketch number 1, and I had from bonus sketch number 3, there was some people that were asking me how to do the angled cut piece at the bottom. So I am not going to put together the whole layout. We're just going to talk about cutting these angle pieces right there. So the one thing I want, we're going to start off with is they create this on a base piece of paper. So you need to have your base piece, and I'm going to use, just for ease, I'm going to just use a piece of, if I can find it here, I'm going to use a piece of beige cardstock. I'm working with some papers out of the Tonals Summer Textures. So I've got the Red Barn that has the flowers on the opposite side, this starry sky with the grass. And I'm just going to put it on a base of the beige paper, the beige cardstock. You could use any other piece that matches. And really all that beige is going to do is it is becoming the grout lines, those thin lines between the pieces is that's all that's going to show through of the beige. So they wanted us to, they talk about this in step number 5. That's what we're focused on, is step number 5 of this handout. And like I said, you can get this handout on my website. You'll find it. I did this as part of Scrapbook Live from September 21st. So that is the article, or if you go to that blog post, you'll see this as part of the 3-page handout. We're going to cut a 2-inch strip of of beige. It's whatever your base piece is that you're going to build this border on. So 2 inches. That's what I want. 2 inches. I've got my straight blade, 2 inches. If you wanted it to be 3 inches, if you want it to be wider, you can, the technique that I'm going to show you, you can use with any width. We're going to do 2 inches because that's the size they tell us. Now, for this, I'm going to be cutting 2 strips of these papers. I will have 4 sides to work with, all right? I'll have 4 different patterns. You can see them here, those 4 patterns. You may want to just do 1 paper and work multiple sides. I will tell you, I would recommend still cutting 2 strips. Give yourself some room to mess up. Give yourself some room to play around with your angles. Cut 2 strips. Just when you're first learning how to do this, cut 2 strips at least. Even if you're just using, if I just wanted a red and a gold border, I'm going to cut 2 strips of this paper. I'm going to cut 1 strip of each. So I have 2 strips to work with. I'm going to cut my strips to, I want to cut them taller or wider. So I cut this at 2 inches. I'm going to cut mine. I'm actually going to go to 2.5. You could probably go to 2 1/4. I'm going to go to 2.5. So I cut that one at 2.5, and I'll cut this one at 2.5. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to rotate this, and I'm going to cut these into segments. You can chunk the segments however you want. I would give yourself I think I did 2 3-inch segments and 3 2-inch segments. So I did 2 3-inch segments. So these are each 3 inches. And I'm going to cut the rest of this into 2-inch segments. So you can see there, I have 3 2-inch segments and 2 3-inch segments. I'm going to repeat the same with this other piece. You probably could just chunk them all into 3-inch segments or all into 2-inch. I would probably default to a little wider if you're going to do the same. This part is just, I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to do this. This is the way that I hopefully will be a place for you to start to learn, to experiment, get you going. You can customize it from there. All right. So to get started with this, I am going to take just one of my smaller end pieces here. Got my scissors. You're going to want your scissors. And I'm going to go ahead and just do an angle cut. And I'm going to position that right here. That's my start. All right. I've started it. Got my angle going. Now I'm going to pick a different color. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do green. Green is on the back side. So if I need to flip some of these pieces over to remember my colors, I'm going to pick green. So what I'm going to do is I've got my green. I'm going to grab the last piece I just angled. I'm going to hold it on the edge. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to hold it with my left hand, pinch it together, kind of in the middle. You can overlap as much as you need to so you feel like you get a good hold. Take my scissors and cut along that cut I previously made. Scrap, I'm just going to put to the side. I don't know if I'm going to need that or not. I'm not going to throw it away. I'm just going to put it to the side. So here's my first piece. Here's my second piece. My angles are good. I can line this up if I want to do one edge flush on the bottom, but what I'm going to see is as I'll be able to play with it a little bit. If I want a piece a little wider or whatever, I have some space there to fudge things around. Now, this green piece, I need to angle this edge. I can go wide. I could go a sharp angle. I could go a shallow angle. Here's where you can just kind of play with it a little bit. But you want to try to just do a nice straight cut. So there's my first wedge, or my second wedge, my green wedge. Now I'm going to come in, I'm going to grab this yellow piece again. And maybe I'll be able to line this up. It's not perfect. So what I'm going to do is the same thing I just did before, where I'm going to hold things in place and trim out so that my edges are the same. Actually, what I'm going to do, this paper is non-directional. I'm going to flip it around. Well, no, because then I'm going to have a weird edge. The goal is that you'll use the previous piece to help you cut the next piece. And that should give you parallel, or give you those lines. So now I'll grab a blue piece. I'm using my previous piece to set my angle. What I'm doing is I'm making sure that my edges are flush at the top and the bottom. That's telling me that I'm going to cut my angle correct. And I'm just using scissors. And you just keep working your way along. So it does take a little bit of time. The technique, as you practice it, you get more confident with it. So once you really get, you get things figured out, you'll see it goes by pretty quick. And you just keep working. If I decide that I want this piece to be a little wider, I can move it down. So I can change the spacing a little bit if I want more of the blue, maybe I want more of the yellow, but I want less of the green to show. You can see how adjusting top to bottom just gives you a little bit more so you just keep moving along. So hopefully this will give you guys some confidence to try it, to experiment. You might find a technique as you're messing around with it that works a little bit better for you. The goal is obviously just to get a border made. So it's a fun technique, but you can see I'm really working my way through those two segments of those two strips that I made. So you're definitely going to want to start with two pieces or those 12-inch strips, because you're going to end up with potentially with quite a bit of the scrap. I think I'm going to end it on the green here. And then I'm overhanging on this edge, so I can just cut that off. So there, it's kind of hard to see because the beige blends into my white background. I'll adhere everything into place, but you guys will see and then share it with you. It is not that challenging. You guys can use scrap bits of paper. If you cut more sharper angles, you can use narrower pieces. It really just depends on, what look you're going for. Sometimes I have a tendency to chunk things a little bit bigger because I just want to get through it. I don't want a lot of tiny little pieces that I'm having to put into place. Just make sure, right now I would not want to mess up my order, right? That would kind of be devastating. So when you're putting this together, take your time you don't want this to get out of order. I could have been tacking these into place as I was creating. Oh, and that's not working because I put adhesive on the wrong side. So it just goes together as such, and try to keep those grout lines the same width. This technique will, by doing it this way, you will make sure that if you have any patterns, like you can see here, I've got the barnwood has a definite, I want to make sure my lines stay perpendicular, that they're not slanted. So that's why taking the time to make those individual angle cuts worked out well. And just keep putting it together. I'm almost done. So once you have it on here, you'll need to trim off the overhang. So that is going to be border 3, or the border for layout number 3. So I hope that you all take the time to put this together, to share it in the Creative Memories, the virtual crop group. Just see here, I'm going to come in and just trim off all these pieces. You could also use scissors. Clean up this bottom edge. I had one piece that didn't cut very well. And there we go. I'll put this on here so you can see, hopefully you guys can see now, that I've got that nice crisp lines, the angled cuts. In their design, they cut this border down the middle and separate the pieces. That is why in the directions it looks like it's such a wider piece, is because they've actually come in here. They say after you make it, you're going to trim off 1/2 inch. All right, so you cut off 1/2 inch and then you separate those pieces. So So they're separating the pieces. So once again, make sure you're putting on plenty of adhesive at the top and the bottom so you don't lose any piece. So you would separate it. And then that's where they have you coming down the middle. They show the where the eyeball piece, that eyeball border is. So you could, if you do with a different pattern, you could do, or different design, you could do something different here that would give you kind of a fun effect there in the middle. So that's how they make that border for sketch number, bonus sketch number.